The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and are not those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. The phone lines are open. Call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788. That's 220-WSTU. It's time for Stuart Laser Talk with your host, Dr. Tred J. Rosacker.
I'm 5'10" and 242 pounds.
I always say this is the biggest I'm ever going to be, and I said that like 20 pounds ago.
A third of Americans are obese, another third is overweight.
Obesity is the biggest threat to the health, welfare, and future of this country.
I've always been overweight.
I've got diabetes,
Sleep apnea, heart disease.
everything's hurting now.
It's a lot easier to lose weight than it is to keep weight off.
This is probably going to be the first generation of children who are going to have a shorter life expectancy than their parents.
18% of our children right now are obese.
It's not only health, it's about survival and well-being of the United States as a nation.
You don't crave broccoli, and our generation has grown up craving a Big Mac.
I want to think that there's something better for me.
Unless we're able to control this epidemic, we're going to have an abundance of chronic disease.
All of us have to be part of the solution to reduce obesity.
The weight of the nation is out of control, but we can fix that.
If we don't now take this as a really urgent national priority, we are all going to pay a really serious price.
Obesity will crush the United States in oblivion.
Good morning, Stuart, Florida. My name is Dr. Tred Rosacker, and I am going to be your host here for the next, well, I guess 52 minutes. Is that right, Evan? 52 minutes of incredible information, of wellness ideas, of talks about food, about body fat. And, you know, I'm on a mission to be healthy myself. I think everybody eventually might come to that point where they realize that there's nothing more important than your health and your longevity and not being sick while you're alive. That's a huge one for me. I never, ever thought that as I got older, I would start suffering. And yet I did. And it came from a lot of decisions I made when I was in my youth. And one of them is really just not allowing myself to carry too much body fat. Not realizing how devastating it would be as you get older. And, you know, it's the lead in to metabolic disease, and metabolic disease is the cause of heart attacks and strokes and cancer and type 2 diabetes. And now the dementia and Parkinson's. What a wonderful idea to think that you might end up with one of those 4 or 5 horrible degenerative conditions. I'm suffering right now with type 2 diabetes and neuropathy. I had corrected it about, maybe 12 years ago. I lost the weight and started looking much better at my fitness and food, but the damage had been done before that. Thank gosh I lost that weight and started changing things, because the outcome would be much, much worse than what I'm dealing with today. And my whole basis behind why I do this radio and why I'm in practice at this point in my life is to share my own experiences and my own journeys to finding health and happiness and, you know, not suffering. And as a licensed doctor of chiropractic, I can share that with you legally, and with, you know, I can share it with you, and you can actually learn from this. And, you know, I'm not Dr. Google. Okay. If you're going to Dr. Google, you're probably 80% of everything you're reading online, if you're not really sharp, is most likely you're being misled in some way. You're being told something that's not true. You're being told something that leads to a business model that maybe doesn't benefit you except for the short term, like semaglutide, Ozempic. Short term, long term suffering. And I mean, the stuff's only been on the market for, it really began about 10 years ago, but it's taken over within the last 3 to 4 years. It's become the number one drug sold, I believe, in the world. Right up there with the top 2 or 3, if it's not number 1. And it has loads of side effects. And it's physiologically incompatible care. And that means physiologically how your body functions and what it needs to do, it's incompatible with that. Yet they're lining up like cattle to get on that drug. Cost for Ozempic, semaglutide. Now, I want to understand the difference between Ozempic and semaglutide. Ozempic is the brand that semaglutide is made from. It's a GLP-1 agonist, and it slows down your digestive tract. That's what it does. It stops you from wanting to eat because it slows down your digestion. If you're interested in learning more about this, stay tuned because I'm going to go over it more. I just want to introduce myself as a qualified, licensed healthcare provider whose business is weight loss for over 15 years. I've seen over 7,000 people, and I use a low-level laser, red light, wavelength, or color at a very low power to activate, to cause your body to release fat by applying this energy to the body. It sounds like something out of Star Trek. How could that be? The little decoder, and then the guy's healed. The technology of light therapy to stimulate mitochondrial function, to stimulate supercells within your body is well documented. It's well referenced. I've been doing it for 15 years right here in Stewart on East Ocean Boulevard. It's called the Slim Body Laser Spa, but it's really laser assisted weight loss. Think about that. Laser assisted weight loss. So using a laser, red light, low level laser, class 3B, FDA cleared and approved technology applied to your belly fat, your love handles, your muffin tops, your thighs, your chin, your back fat in a series of sessions. We recommend 9 to begin, but you can do 100. It's not dangerous. It doesn't cause any tissue damage. It doesn't create any side effects at all. And wherever you apply that technology, which is in the form of a paddle, looks like a cell phone, like my iPhone, but we have 8 of them, and there's diodes in there, little laser diodes in each face of those paddles. So we have 8 paddles. Each paddle has 8 diodes, red light, and those paddles are 64 diodes. So instead of having one laser diode that you might have to move around to cover an area, we can apply it with these paddles across the area that you want to reduce. In 6 to 8 minutes or 10 minutes of the application, the maximum amount of fat is released from the tissue cells without damaging the tissue cell, without creating any harm or tissue debris or anything that has to be absorbed over time, such as the other procedures. This red light is actively absorbed by the mitochondria. And the mitochondria are the energy cells, the battery cells that give you energy to live. Every cell in your body, and you have trillions of cells, muscle cells, heart cells, ligament cells, bone cells, nerve cells, fat cells. Every single one of them has mitochondria within the cell, which absorb energy in the form of glucose to power your body. And this is where energy comes from the mitochondria within those tissue cells. And those mitochondria respond to glucose, which is blood sugar, which you get when you eat food. When you eat food, it's broken down into its micronutrients, and one of them is glucose. And of course, there's amino acids and there's triglycerides. There's some other factors here, but for most of you, you're all glucose dependent. It's a carbohydrate craze we're in right now. And that produces glucose. That glucose goes into your bloodstream and it's distributed to the cells of your body for work, for providing function, whatever that tissue's job is, whether it's to contract or relax or send messages in the form of nerve, whatever it is, it uses the glucose to power that function. However, if you eat more glucose or carbohydrate glucose than your body can utilize as energy, the remainder, some of it is made into stored glucose in the form of glycogen, but all the rest of those extra food that you're eating, those calories, are converted to fat as a triglyceride. And that triglyceride is stored within cells called adipose tissue, fat cells. This process is mediated by insulin. Insulin is a hormone which causes these blood sugar to be pulled into the cells. Insulin is what opens up cells. If you have high insulin levels, you will always be storing energy. High insulin, storing energy. Okay. Now, if you're able to burn off the energy that you're storing, such as when we were young, if you remember, you could eat anything you want. You didn't create any weight. You didn't create any sickness. You could, gosh, it was terrible how much I could eat when I was young. What happens is your body's ability to burn that energy gets less and less and less as you get older, but you don't stop eating. In fact, most people eat more now that they're older than they did when they were younger, without the ability to burn and to process that extra energy in the form of work, which is what glucose goes to. So more of the food you're eating is being pushed into the fat cells. This is how we gain weight. All right. It wasn't because somebody sneezed on you or you were born genetically to gain weight, or none of that is true. This is really a food plate putting into your body more energy than you can consume or burn. And since you're missing that mark, you're putting in too much, you are making fat. Now here's a fact. So if you just tuned in, you're listening to Dr. Tread's Slim Body Laser Spa. Hey, I have free consultations and free hot dogs, free pizza. That ought to get your attention, right? Not. I offer free body fat checks with a very nice machine called a body impedance. It measures your body fat, your resting caloric intake, your muscle tone, and how hydrated you are. With those numbers, you can actually apply those numbers to what you're eating, to what your habits are, and you now have the guidelines to actually lose weight, build muscle tone, be rehydrated, and live a much healthier life than jumping into thinking that Ozempic or this semaglutide is going to make any changes. Again, that's physiologically incompatible. Without the BIA exam, you cannot really know what you're eating or how much you should eat. Every doctor knows that. Every weight loss center knows that. But you know what they do? They don't give you that information. They almost, not all of them, but many of them, they want you to be dependent on their model, their point system, their food that they deliver to your house, their supplementation, your essential fatty acids, your appetite suppressants. You name the weight loss center, and that's what you're going to see. Rarely do they give you the tools that are necessary for you to do it on your own. Why? Because there's no money in that. They can't make money if they don't have you needing to buy their food or their delivery or their stuff. So I'm offering that free body fat analysis. All you got to do is call the spa, Dr. Tread, Slim Body Laser, look it up, say it into your phone. We have incredible recognition and authority when it comes to online searches because we've been doing this for 15 years. And I'll do that free exam for you. Just give us a call. So to get back to the energy that you're putting in your body, the amount of energy that you eat, food that you eat, is dependent on a few things. It isn't just energy. It's something called the glycemic index, what that food is actually made of. And when it came out of the ground in the form of plants, vegetables, fruit, that food has the highest quality of nutrients, of bioflavonoids, of phyto, of energy, of fiber, of cellular. It has the highest possible quality right when it came out of the ground, as long as it was grown in the ground that was, nutritious ground. It was, composted and, it wasn't over farmed, because you can grow food in dirt that's been completely poisoned with chemicals and pesticides and nutrients. And that makes food that's full of poison. Yet they won't tell you that. So when food was given to us in plants and vegetables and roots, and the animals that eat that food, that eat those plants and that grass, they then transfer that energy into their body in the form of proteins, okay, and amino acids. So when the human or anything eats the animal, you get the fat and the proteins that are necessary for your health. And as long as it's, naturally produced, eating, wasn't, food can be concocted and can be changed to be very unhealthy, yet you don't know that. And that's what I'm learning lately is, whoa, are we in trouble? When it comes to food and what we're eating and how it's making us sick, there's a reason why, we have an 80% of adults in the USA are overweight. 80%. Just take 10 of you. 8 out of 10 are at the point of being overweight. From that 88 out of 10, from that 8, 40 to 60% are morbidly obese. They're over 30 to 35% body fat. And if you're over 65 or 70, you're probably morbidly obese with a body fat closer to 40 to 45%. Think about that. Think about that. If you weigh 100 pounds, well, let's say you weigh 200 pounds. Do you know that 40% tells you that you're carrying 80 pounds of fat out of your 200 pounds? That fat layer at 200 pounds should be like 20 pounds, not 80. And we wonder why we don't feel well, why we're on blood pressure medications, why we're getting neuropathy, why we're suffering strokes, why we're suffering dementia, why diabetes is probably going to be the number one killer. It's just getting worse and worse. I have diabetes, okay? And I'm tuned up. I work hard on eating the right foods, but it got me too, because I didn't do this until I was well into my 50s. I didn't really make those changes. And you know what? I'd already done the damage. In fact, I think we're damaging children when they first start eating. What do kids normally want to eat? Cereal, Captain Crunch, Frankenberry, Pop-Tarts, Lunchables. I don't even know all the garbage food that's being put into kids, but I can tell you this, there's no nutrition in it. It's empty calories. It's sugar, basically high fructose sugars and oils that are bad for you, called seed oils. And that would be polyunsaturated fats. Saturated are fats which have the bonds have already been saturated. They do not get bad. They don't go rancid if you don't, in a certain amount of time. Polyunsaturated fats, they go rancid very quickly because they have these open bonds. And that's what they're putting mostly in the food we're eating is this polyunsaturated fat. Oh, yes. Yes, it lowers cholesterol. And that's the whole reason behind it. But guess what? You need cholesterol. Cholesterol makes all of your hormones. Cholesterol is the basic building block of life. Most people have high cholesterol because they're not getting enough sunlight. Well documented. Vitamin D your body makes vitamin D from sunlight with cholesterol makes vitamin D. We are very, very deficient in vitamin D as a culture, as humans, around the world, by the way. And as a result of those low vitamin D levels, and we're not getting enough sunlight, we have to supplement with vitamin D. When they did some studies on COVID, on these bad outcomes of COVID, people that died in hospitalization, besides the fact that obesity was the number one predictor of whether they're going to have a bad outcome with COVID, the fatter, the more obese they were, the more less likely they are to live and survive a respiratory problem. The other factor that came into play was all that died had very low levels of vitamin D. In fact, the vitamin D is such an important anti-COVID vitamin because it's a hormone. It's not a vitamin, you guys. It's not I know it's called vitamin D. It's a hormone that we make. We manufacture them inside of our body by sunlight and cholesterol striking our body. But when's the last time you saw your grandmother laying out in the sun and letting sun hit her open body and her legs all around her, besides where her underwear are? They're hiding from the sun. They tell you the sun is going to cause cancer. They tell you the sun is dangerous. They tell you the sun, it's incredible. That is false data. The reason why people get sick or have cancer from sunlight is their immune system has been destroyed through the chemicals, through the not exercising, through not getting enough water, through not deep breathing, through not having the right nutrients in their food, and their immune system is suffering. And just like someone with a decreased immune system gets sick when everyone sneezes on them, they're always having colds and flus and things like that. Those same people, when exposed to sunlight, will develop cancer before somebody whose immune system is working properly. Now, you don't have to do research to believe this. Do you think that our God gave us light, which powers all of life? All of life is powered by sunlight in the form of radiant energy. Do you think that you were not given the mechanisms to protect you from too much light? I'll tell you, the first one is it's bright. You're not going to look at the sun. You close your eyes. Nobody stares at the sun. And the other one is too, if you're out there too much, you get a burn and you say, oh, maybe I got to back off a little bit. Or maybe I need to stay out of the high sun, the sun from 11 o'clock to 4 o'clock. That's high sun. That's blue light. That's really strong. You probably should limit your time in there, especially if you come from, you're not used to being in the sun. But the sunlight you get in the morning at daybreak till about 10 o'clock, and then the sun that you get at the end of the day from like 4 o'clock to actually dark, those wavelengths are different than the high sun at the middle of in the afternoon, at 12 o'clock. And those wavelengths become reds and yellows and near infrared. These are only wavelength you see is the red. The near infrared, the far infrared, and these other wavelengths are felt by the body, but you don't see them with your eyes. And that morning sun and that evening sun is reparative. It's calming. It sets your circadian rhythms back into proper alignment. So you know when to go to bed, when to wake up, when to digest food, when to evacuate your bowels, when you're feeling comfy, when you're not. These basic human, functions are controlled and set in motion by sunlight. Yet we're living in a world where we're artificially stimulating our body with light that's not from the sun, from inside houses and from other areas. And that, as a result, we're starved for sunlight. So you're listening to Dr. Tread Rissacker. I own the Slim Body Laser Spa, 15 years, 7,000 people. I use red light in the wavelength of the morning sun, which is reds and yellows. And those wavelengths and infrared penetrate through the body, into the tissue about 1.5 inches. And when you apply it properly, it literally activates the mitochondria within your cells to power the body's systems, the repair system, the system which restores your blood supply, makes new cells. Also, the system which gets rid of the cells you don't need anymore, the cleanup system. That's all controlled by light. So laying on your back, putting the red light, low-level laser photobiomodulation on your body done by the right professional that understands this, is probably one of the most beneficial things you could ever do for your health, your wellness, your body's ability to repair itself, your ability to go to sleep, to have bowel movements. It's all controlled by light, you guys. It is controlled by light. Yet light has become a demon. It's been demonized by the climate people, by climate control, thinking that the climate is changing. So what do? I don't know exactly how long it was because I don't have this data in front of me, but I think it was probably 20 years, maybe 30 years ago, we discovered that an LED, a light emitting diode, can give you colors, wavelengths of certain specific colors. It used to be the lights that we had, the incandescent light bulbs that Edison created and we had for many, many years, which is screwed in, were full spectrum. That light gave you all of the spectrums that sunlight gives you, such as the rainbow that you see, the purples and the reds and the greens and the yellows, but also near infrared, the wavelength that you don't see, far infrared, and then you have the UVA and UVB, the ultraviolet spectrum. That incandescent light bulb, that stupid light bulb that we used to sell as Boy Scouts, I remember selling them, had full spectrum. You could sit under that light and get every benefit that you get from the sun came from those light bulbs. And they were everywhere. And somebody said, do you know what? These light bulbs are creating heat. And heat must be energy being wasted because who wants to be hot? We just want the light to see. Thus, LEDs were created, which can give you the blue light, the green light, these other light spectrums, and they can omit and not have infrared, far infrared, and the UV spectrum can be left out of that LED. So that light itself generates less heat. And of course, it needs less energy. But what's the trade-off? What's the pay up? What's the trade-off? We have given up that full spectrum when we're under LED lights. Now, how many of you out there had all your lights replaced in your new house with LEDs? Are they full spectrum? Did you ask? If they were, they'd be hot. You would feel the heat. Since it's LED, you don't feel the heat. So there's no ultraviolet. You're not getting any of the UVA, UVB rays, which is absolutely critical for your body's healing systems, for tissue repair, for the circadian rhythms. All of these things come from those wavelengths of light that you don't see. Yet, I believe, here's my thought about it. If you want to use LEDs, make sure they're only being used outside where you're not worried about absorbing the energy from it. It's okay. But if you got them in your area by your desks where you're working, you're by the way, the computer is filled with blue light. There's no beneficial wavelengths that come out of a computer screen. So you should have a blue blocker screen on your computer right now, because you're getting inundated with high energy, high output blue light. That's why these people are wearing blue light glasses, these blocking glasses. Light can make you sick. It can affect your body's health. So within your study, within your home, if you're not getting enough sunlight, this is why I'm telling you got to get out and get some sunlight. If you're just getting light from home and then going to work in your car, and by the way, here's another kicker. UVA, UVB, and infrared light does not penetrate glass. So if you're sitting in front of your window and you're getting some sunlight on you, you are not getting the UVA, the UVB, the near infrared, or the far infrared light spectrum. It screens it out. So it has to be an open source of sunlight, not behind the glass. I know that to be true. I have a scope. It's a hunting scope, and it's thermo. In other words, it looks for heat, infrared. It's an infrared scope, they call it. If you use the infrared scope through the window, you can't see anything beyond the window. It has to be, you got to open the window, and then the infrared scope works great. But with the window, it doesn't work. So here you are, sitting in your house, in your building, in your cubicle, and you got a little sunlight coming in from the thing, and you're thinking, okay, I'm good. You're not good. You're not even close to getting the full spectrum necessary, which powers your body, heals your body, repairs tissue, helps you with all of your circadian rhythms. Gosh darn it, get some sunlight. Get it in the morning, get it in the evening. If you're sensitive to burns, limit your afternoon sun, okay? And get on some vitamin D. And don't just take vitamin D. Go get your blood work. Go see what your vitamin D levels are. It's a simple blood test. Yeah, I specialize in light, and I am a light junkie. I love it. I lay out there. I'll tell you, they've done a lot of studies on this. This is very controversial because I don't know why. I just think sometimes they get so into their science and what they think is the only option. And really it's something which is not very good for you. If you've just tuned in, my name is Dr. Tread Rissacker. I'm located in Stewart on East Ocean Boulevard in a building across from the Fresh Market. It's called the Slim Body Laser Spa. And yes, it is a health center. We are offering to anyone that's heard me on the radio, you just call up, tell them you'd like to schedule a body fat analysis, a BIA exam, and I'll sit down and I'll do a case history and I'll find out where you are, and then we'll do that exam. And you will know and have the data as to how much body fat you're truly carrying. By the way, these things you do online, your Fitbit on your wrist is probably 30 to 40% off as an error. It's not really giving you a true measurement of how many steps you take. It's not really giving you any true data as to how much body fat you're carrying. because it's an estimate. It's an algorithm. It's a little stupid little computer on your wrist that makes you think. Now it has some benefit because at least it's making you think about it, but those numbers are way off. How do I know? Because I do these exams all the time and people tell me, well, this is what my watch said, or this is what my online app said, that I went in and put in this information and it looked at the food I ate and it looked at my height and my weight and my age. And it told me I'm only 24% body fat. I put them on the machine and they're over 32, 33%. You're like, oh, what does that mean? I said, well, it means you're obese. Obese? It didn't say that on my app. I don't know why. Got to get the facts. Get the facts. Get the facts. The truth. Don't leave it up to an app or your health coach. Not against coaching, man. I mean, Tiger Woods needed a golf coach. I've used coaching in my office for, to be successful in business management. I had coaches, but now these coaches, these life coaches that are dealing with food and telling you what to eat and what not to eat and how much you should exercise and, working on mindfulness and spiritual axioms. And, they get little degrees by taking some classes online. There's clubs and groups that certify you as a life coach. And, I know medicine doesn't want to take care of you. The doctors don't want to be your coach, which is a shame, which is why life coaches have appeared on the horizon. Usually they're faith-based, which is, I'm not against faith. I think it's a good thing. However, ask your doctor, not medicine doctors, not someone that works at the Cleveland Clinic. That's for sure. There's people like me out there that are coaches, but with science and with a license and with a risk involved, that if I give you the wrong information and you complain to my board, they can take my license and I can't live. But health coaches, they don't have any of those restrictions. And so just take it, with the knowledge that you're getting some information, and it is good to have friends. There's a well-known statistic that states that if you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to exercise or you're trying to break a bad habit, it's much better to do it together with other people than it is to do it alone. It's very hard to do it alone. And that's where I really see these life coaches, these health coaches. I think that that's their main benefit, is just belonging to the club and having a feedback loop where you can all move together. And it's called the herd urge. The humans like to belong to groups. We don't want to do things against the group, which is why people do things that can be horrible to other people, because they want to be part of the group. And group consciousness is called the herd urge, and that can be very beneficial when it comes to losing weight or making changes. You just have to be careful that the person that the group is being led by doesn't become a cult of personality, where you're just doing it because of their personality. And always bounce it back with reference material and people like Dr. Tread. I'm over there. Slim Body Laser Spa, East Ocean Boulevard. Dr. Tread's Slim Body Laser Spa. All right. Any questions about light? Do you think that I really believe what I'm telling you here, and I hope and pray that you do a deep dive into the power of light. And light is one of those primordial things which, if you really understood how important sunlight is to us, you would understand why I'm telling you this. And let me give you I'm going to give you a quick 5-minute explanation of what I go over with all of my patients that come in for the body sculpting or for chiropractic. I am a practicing chiropractor, and I am doing, I'm using light to heal neuropathy. I'm using light to reduce inflammation. I'm using light to reduce pain. I'm using light to literally repair damaged tissue. They're called cold lasers. You've seen them out there. Your chiropractors have them. Some of them do. But you got to make sure you're applying light correctly. Just because you went for cold laser and somebody shined it on you or held it didn't mean that they were really trained in it or how to do it properly. Thank God it doesn't hurt anybody. But what happens is the results suffer if it's not done properly. So let's go over why I think light is critically important and why it is something that you need to learn about if you want to really be healthy. So I do these talks to nurses and to doctors and my clients, my patients that come in. And I always ask them, I said, we eat food to give us energy, correct? I mean, why are you eating food? Is it to celebrate a birthday? Is it because you're bored? Is it to have something to do at the end of night? Is it because you want to have a couple drinks with why are you eating food? I can tell you exactly why. We eat food so we have the energy to perform work. Your food you eat creates the energy to allow you to do things, to sit, to stand, to make love, to run, to fish, to sleep, to process all the toxins, to repair. It all comes from the food you eat. Just like the car needs gasoline to make the motor work. Without gasoline in the car doesn't work. The motor doesn't work, right? Now, with that understanding that, would you put bad gasoline in your car? I mean, gasoline that isn't pure and has dirt in it or particles that are not combustible, it's poor quality. You wouldn't do it willingly, knowingly, because the car would not run as well. But it's not here's the difference between the food you eat and the fuel that goes in a car. The fuel in the car does not rebuild the car. When you put gasoline in your car, it doesn't rebuild the motor. It doesn't put new tires on it. It doesn't fix the dents on the door, right? It just powers the motor. Well, the food you eat, not only does it power the motor, which are your mitochondria, it also gives you the substrates, the building blocks to rebuild tissue, to rebuild your body. Think about that. That is a much higher bar to look at when you pick the next meal that you're going to put in your body. You have to look at that and look at that food and say, is there any nutrition in this food? Are there building blocks, protein? Are there amino acids in this? Are there phytonutrients, bioflavonoids? Is there fiber? Or is it just sugar, salt, spices? Okay? So when you eat food, we need energy, but we're also eating food to rebuild the body. Did you know your body is rebuilt from head to toe every approximately 7 years, except for fat cells, brain cells, and your teeth? But even the teeth can be shown to be, with enamel can be repaired. But fat cells and brain cells, they don't repair. You get what you got. You keep them for life unless you use them. It's as if you lived in a house that one day you just bought a new house. 6 weeks later, the contractor comes and says, we're going to put some new floors in. You're like, well, I just got the floors. Yeah, but our goal is to repair this house every 7 years. You're going to have a brand new house. We've learned that that's going to keep the house living longer and working better. So we're putting in floors today. All right, you put the floors in. A couple of weeks later, they comes in and says, we're putting all new wires in. What, wires? Yeah. We replace all the wires within every 7 years. We put all new wires in. That would be your nerves. And then you find out that he comes back later on and says, we're putting a new roof in. And you'd be like, wow, everything's being repaired and replaced. Even though I busted the wall because I was mad at my kid and I punched the wall and all of a sudden it was fixed. In other words, your body's doing that. The lining of your mouth, which runs your digestive tract from your mouth down to your butt, is replaced every 5 days. The tissue lining is replaced every 5 days. That's because it's got a lot of wear and tear. Your gums of your teeth, your mouth, heal in 3 days because it's a tissue repair cycle. Your red blood cells are replaced, I think it's every 6 months. I forget the life cycle for red blood cells, but within 6 months, you've got all new red blood cells. Your bones are replaced every 2 years with new tissue. The old tissue is died off, new tissue comes in, and you got new bones. Your skin is replaced every 15 days. And there's tissue life cycles throughout your whole body when it comes to even these things you don't even know exist. Yet, let me ask you a question. How is it that if your knee is replaced every 2 years, the ligaments are replaced, the muscles are rebuilt, the blood supply is new, how is it that you have a chronic injury or chronic problems that last for 6 and 7 and 10 and 20 years? Everything is replaced. This is fact. This is science. So if you think about it, why do you think it's happening? You know why? Because you're not fixing the cause of what created it in the first place. Whatever you did or happened to you or befell you without your knowledge, not genetics, genetics only is about 2 or 3%, you have not removed the cause as to why it happened in the first place. You're still doing it. So the body is trying to heal. It's trying to repair itself. It is always repairing itself. Yet, how does chronic disease stay? Well, that's my journey. I'm trying to figure that out because I got some chronic things that happened to me. One is neuropathy in my feet. I'm learning that neuropathy is from glycolization of sugar attaching to proteins and attaching to fat molecules. And that glycolization, which is called caramelization, if you cook a piece of meat, it turns caramelized. That glycolization continues to be deposited in the vessels at the end of your toes, of your feet. And of course, those vessels are replaced every 2 years, but I never stopped putting the sugar in, the glycolization. I continued it. So my body was trying to fix itself, but I kept putting it in, and I didn't know that's where it was coming from. Now, I knew that a lot of sugar creates that. I didn't realize that even a small amount can create that. Even your silly, I just have a cup of ice cream a night, doc, it's not a big deal, can create that. Or the fact that I start my day every day with a bagel. My God, I live right by that bagel place on East Ocean. From 7:30 or 8 to 10 o'clock, there's got to be 25 cars there. And you go in and they're all, not everybody, but there's a lot of weight issues in there. And they're starting their day off. I got a bagel. Good thing it's got bagel and lox. Give me a schmear of cream cheese. I eat bagels for years. I didn't know they were creating this glycolization in my toes. I had no idea. But I'm learning. And you can too. My name is Dr. Tread Rissacker. I'm a doctor of chiropractic. I've been in practice for 35 years. I specialize in using light devices, light therapies to help restore and revivify and heal the body. It works amazing. And at the same time, I am a doctor of chiropractic, and I can help with alignment. I can help with horrible. I got to go over this. This is really important. By the way, call us at the spa, Slim Body Laser Spa. I'm on East Ocean, right across from the Fresh Market. Get a free body fat analysis. Come in, learn about what I do. I'll sit down with you for 30 minutes. There's no charge. It's free. Just come with an open mind and an open heart, and you'll do fine. So I got a real peeve to talk about. This really bugs the heck out of me because I see it. I'm a guy. Do you know, before we were able to like travel around the world in steamliners, and it used to take half a year to sail across the continent, and most of the boats perished. Did you know when Americans or when people started to go to Africa and they saw zebras and giraffes, they came back from Africa and told them, I saw a striped horse. I swear to God. It looked just like the horses we see here, but the darn thing was striped. I saw another animal that was 16 to 17 feet tall, had these long, skinny legs. He was orange with spots, and his head bobbed around. You know what they said? You're lying. Well, why are you making up these stories? But what do you mean? I saw it. No, that's impossible. There's no striped horses. I see the horses here. I raise horses. My family got wild horses as Mustangs from the Midwest. And you're telling me you got a striped horse? Get out of here. That sounds funny, but that's what happened. What I'm telling you is factual. Just because you haven't seen it or know it. And here's the deal, because I've only got a few minutes left. If you're looking at regeneration therapies, regenerative medicine, stem cells, PRP, anything which is trying to rebuild tissue, anything like glutathione, if you're doing IV drips, if you're doing hyperbaric oxygen, you're trying to restore your health, you're trying to repair tissue, and you are carrying too much body fat, and I would even tell you that even at 25%, which our CDC says is normal, is still too much fat. You will have a much more difficult time responding to those therapies if you're carrying too much body fat. And so to go in and drop $15,000 on some knee injections because you're thinking the stem cells are going to rebuild your cartilage, yet you're 30 pounds overweight or you're morbidly obese, which is inflammatory, creates inflammation faster than that stem cells can fix it. You're making a mistake. So give me a call. I can help you get rid of the body fat. And then you should do that regenerative medicine. You'll have a much better chance at responding. In fact, you might find you don't even need it. All right. You know where I am, Slim Body Laser Spa. I can be here every single Tuesday from 9 to 10 o'clock. It's called WSTU 1450. We have free consultations. You should come in and check it out. And tell someone today that you love them and be good to each other. Thank you. Bye-bye.